All right. Good morning. You're listening or looking or watching the raw, unedited version of Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you'd like to watch the final version, or actually not watch it, but listen to the final version of our show, please go to smlr.us. Thanks.
The Sunday Morning Linux Review with Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the Beaver.
All right, and this is episode 174.
Gone too soon.
Yeah. So this is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
And Tom Lawrence.
Yep. And we, for reasons that I think most people are aware of, we chose Gone Too Soon just to express our feelings about the passing of Ian Murdoch. I know that many podcasts and articles and other media venues have talked about it, and we just wanted to acknowledge it in the name of our show.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So where do you want to start?
What you guys do?
Yeah. We had, now since we last broadcast, we had a couple of holidays, and we had a few other days. So
I haven't seen you guys since last year. My favorite dad joke.
that's right, we haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't seen, since 2015.
Yeah. You know what? This is
Okay.
also Mary's 4-year anniversary being on the show.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't look a day
Congratulations.
over 3. I don't sound a day over 3. There we go.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah, that's right. I joined the first January show in, what was it? 2012, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's been,
It's been a long time.
yeah, 4 years.
Shocking. All right. Well, let's catch up. What kind of interesting techie or otherwise stuff?
I completed a couple projects. We talked about Let's Encrypt, so I got that done.
Mhm.
That's been working great, no problems there. I also completed and documented a project that's on my website, which is the Shredder project. And we took a Raspberry Pi, and the only thing left is I documented and made a video of what it is, how it works. Now I got to show some of the physical parts of it. But we took a Raspberry Pi and we connected some hard drive docks to it. And every hard drive you plug in there just automatically shreds.
Yeah.
And we use this at work, so we do 3-pass wipes on anything before we install it. So even if we get a used computer,
That's just a stock Raspberry Pi that you've.
Yeah. We wrote the software. Well, my friend actually did.
Nice.
It's all on GitHub. I put the links in the YouTube video.
Really?
You can find it on my channel.
So Tony or I could download this,
Yes.
put it on our Raspberry Pis, and set up a competing business.
You got it.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Does it use UDEV? Whenever it recognizes a drive plugged in, then it runs a script?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's really simple, and it blinks a little light.
Wow.
We started with blinking a light, but we're moving it eventually to a relay system that's going to have like a little spitty light to let us know when the drives are done. But right now, the light blinks when the drives are shredding. We're going to have one that kicks off and then blinks a light that flashes something out that's like, I don't know, the guys wanted a buzzer. I said, no, I'm not putting a buzzer in. Yeah, they want to know when the drives are done. They're like, well, let's just like police bubblegum lights. You know what I mean?
Well, doesn't the drive just stop spinning when it's done?
Yeah, but no one notices. That's the problem.
Well, they should. Well, maybe they can get like a little microphone or a baby monitor. There you
Yeah.
go. Get a
Stuff
baby
that'd be
monitor, put it right by there, and then they can listen to it elsewhere.
Yeah, but it's pretty simple. And the problem is it takes so many hours to shred a drive. So we have like a few docks lined up, and we have 2 right now. We might move it to 4 docks because we just have so many drives to go through all the time, and each drive takes like 7 or 8 hours to shred. So that's why.
Now you're talking electronic shredding.
Yeah. It's just
It takes 7 hours to electronically shred a drive.
to do a 3-pass random wipe. Yes, it can take up to that long on like a 2 terabyte drive.
Oh,
The smaller
okay.
drives, like the 500 gigs, only take like 2 or 3 hours, something like that. I don't always pay attention.
So emptying my trash can just doesn't do the job.
It just doesn't do the job.
No.
It's part of the internal policy.
I know,
when it comes to
I know.
Data security.
Uh-huh.
We get a lot of people trading computers, and what we do if someone trades in the computer, we don't just load Windows over it, which for most people is probably adequate to do. But we actually take the drive out, do the 3-pass DBAN wipe, then we put it back in and load Windows. So we also do that to verify the integrity of the drive. The way drives work, it's middle out. So I'm sorry,
Inside out.
inside out. So as the data runs across the drive, you don't know if the drive has bad sectors on a later part of the drive. You won't know until you start adding data beyond Windows. Well, when you do this, some of the drives don't pass. And we'll realize right then, because it flags the smart status, because it walks the entirety of the drive,
Sure.
and it finds bad sectors, and then we know that drive's not good. So it one serves as a data protection, two serves as a is this drive good? It's doing 3 pass reads and writes. We know the drive works from top to bottom. So
What tool are you doing to confirm that?
we just use the smart
F-disk
status.
or no?
When we're done, we'll just check the smart status.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I've looked at that a little bit. It's that smart technology is really something
it
else.
is neat.
You
So,
should have an email when it finishes,
we've actually
or
looked
A
at that.
text.
or you could have it tweet out. Send a tweet when it's done.
Yeah,
There
we
you go.
thought about that, but what are the other?
Tony's providing that for free.
Yeah. we looked at a couple different options like that too, where it sends a message or something like that too. Because there are some APIs for Twitter, for example, where I can tweet the drive's done. So.
Yeah. But I mean, even in the email, you
Yeah.
could send the smart report and everything all in one message saying it's done. And
Well, you could, except for when you're running drives over USB, it's hard to read the smart status properly over USB.
so how do you do it then? Do you take
We
it out
put
and
it back
put
in the
it?
computer because
Oh.
once it's hooked up to SATA, it works. There's no SATA interface on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
So we do. It's really weird. I don't know what the inconsistency is. Some drives work. Some drives it reports wrong. And I also learned that smart registers aren't as normal as we thought they were. So we're trying to look up some information. It turns out they all have ordered data positions, but once you get down a couple notches, the ordered data is not exactly the same. So some of them
Really?
use slot 14 for hard drive temperature, and some don't.
Mm.
So we found some weird things in smart, especially when it goes USB. The mapping is weird. I don't understand why.
Yeah.
So, but if you plug it into a regular SATA, the motherboard and the BIOS talk and everybody, and it comes up with the right answers.
Yeah, I know. I did some research on data recovery, and everything I read that USB adapters are not the same as a onboard SATA
Yes,
controller.
They do their own interpretations.
Yeah.
Mm.
So they
Yes.
cause all kinds of fun.
Right. Exactly.
Speaking of USB, and I'm going to diverge the conversation briefly, but Tom, you'll relate to this. When I got my phone, I had a USB-C
Yes.
connector, which I kind of like because
It's universal.
it doesn't matter which way it's oriented, it's going to plug in.
I love
The thing I don't like about it is that for some reason it's a very expensive cable.
There's actually some reasoning for that. There's several resistors and a couple other pieces, and it's not mass manufactured yet.
Oh,
Yeah, I would say
okay.
it's still a new cable, so it's
Right.
probably not.
Yeah, it's
as
like
popular.
$19 at Best Buy, I think.
Yeah.
I just was pricing it someplace.
There's buy them directly from Google.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
reason why. A Google engineer who's become very popular started reviewing all the Amazon ones and just laying into the companies for not following design spec.
Oh, I think you talked
Really?
about that in the
Yes.
last one of our recent podcasts.
Yeah. And
Okay.
he's been really laying into the companies and saying, look, you used the wrong resistors, you used this. I mean, he was disassembling them and posting it and said, why did you? And some of them are reputable companies. And he says, you didn't follow the design spec for USB-C. And it's not Google's design spec, it's the USB standards for C.
Yeah.
Mm.
But he recommends which cables to buy or just buy directly the Google ones. I have
I got a
couple of
cart
them.
charger, USB-C cart charger.
There you go.
I'm wondering if it's okay. It charges.
Yeah. Is it well, it's the cables actually have their own resistor packs in them.
Okay.
So that can be a big factor.
All right.
Because the voltages are the same. The wattages are different.
Okay.
So I also got a drone, did a review of that, posted a video. So
Cool.
that was fun.
Did I see that video?
Maybe.
trying to remember
flew it
you
I
over my
saw it.
house.
Yeah, I saw
I
it
must
go
have
up the
missed
front
that.
of your house, and then that's
Yeah.
all
You
I
built
saw.
it?
No. I bought it.
Oh, you bought it and configured it.
And it's got a camera on it. So I flew it over my house and did a video.
Wow.
That's cool.
Well, I actually did a whole video review of how it works and everything.
Huh.
So people are always asking about them. And I mean, this one's less than $100. Comes with 2 batteries, a 720p camera. You
What's
can-
the range? What's the operational range?
I don't know exactly. I know it goes further.
How
than
far
I
away
can
are your
see.
neighbors?
Yeah, I know it goes
That's one
further
way to
away
find
than I
out.
can see because I
Oh,
mean
okay.
this drone is tiny. But
Mm.
I had no problem. Like I did not lose control when I flew it over 100 feet over my house. It
Mm.
went that high, and I completely couldn't see it, but it kept working, and I could control. I could hear it, kind of. I'm listening. It's just quiet. I'm like, I hear the buzzing noise, and I had to do a drop to try and figure out where it was going because once it got up that high, different winds catch it, it blows around. So I wasn't sure where it
Oh,
was going,
sure.
and I couldn't see it. It ended
Think
up on
about
the neighbor's
that.
roof.
Think about
Oh,
those
no.
airplanes, when you're coming in for a landing and you get
Yeah.
crosswinds and oh my
Nope,
gosh.
that's
Mhm.
what you get with it.
So your
That's-
drone ended up on somebody's roof?
Yes, and it's less than.
Did you
0.55
explain?
Well, I got it off the roof without asking, which made me happy.
I was just gonna say, yeah, my drone's on your roof.
That
I'm
seemed
sure
like
that
it'd be
would
a
have been
really
met with,
awkward conversation.
Yeah.
Why is your
Yeah.
drone on my roof?
I would have said, some bird came by and grabbed this toy of mine and dropped it on your roof. That way, then you just don't tell them it's a drone.
Yeah, it
just
is
a toy.
0.5 is less than the 0.55 pounds.
I was
Okay.
going to ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which means you do not have to register with the FCC.
Oh,
We have
what's
the
the
new
what's the
rules.
threshold? 1 pound?
Yeah,
Half
anything
pound.
over half pound,
Oh, I see.
you have to register with the FCC,
Mm-hmm.
which is free to register, but still.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people are going to do that.
Well, I'm sure everyone who's going to do a criminal activity is going to jump right on that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That's the part that I think is so silly.
Or those voyeurs.
Yeah,
I'm going to register my drone and then I'm going to.
it's because
look
it's
at
all
that
voluntary
neighbor.
registration. Well,
Mhm.
voluntary based fines. I'm kind of like, really, who's gonna register it if they plan to do something bad?
Exactly. Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
ignore that.
Tom, that's
That's
quite
my
a lot of
Christmas.
stuff. Tony, I've decided that you and I should never let him go first
Oh.
because my stuff is going to be so boring by comparison. That's it, Tom. You're going last next time. So Tony, family guy there.
Yeah. Very busy Christmas.
Yeah.
I had to work Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. But Christmas Eve, went into work. It was so slow. We ended up just fixing somebody's phone.
And eating
Which-
Christmas cake.
I actually didn't even have snacks.
Oh,
We
really?
wrapped some presents and then came home.
All
Got out
right.
a little early and
That's kind of nice.
yeah. But ended up throughout the whole holiday season going to 9 different Christmas parties and 4 all on Christmas Day. It was a very busy day, so I apologize to everybody about the late release of the previous shows.
He was partying, everyone.
Right. So you got a treasure trove of SMLR in the last week
Mhm.
here. 3, if you include today, then in the last 4 days you'll have 3 episodes.
Yeah. I was thinking,
Um,
we won't have to record today because he hasn't released them. He'll put them out today.
There
Right.
you go.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Yeah, so it was just busy. I got a little helicopter myself,
Cool.
and yeah, it's one of those $5 ones that it's just, I don't know, it's cool. It was fun to play, and my kids got into it. And what's nice about having kids is you crash it, they'll run over and pick it up and reset it for you.
That's a really good point. That was what my son spent Christmas
as
doing.
useful as little
Yeah.
dogs. Okay, honey, go get that.
Yeah, so it was pretty
Oh
good.
my God, that is great.
Yeah.
Do they rent children out? They might need that. No, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
it used to be
That sounds
cheap.
terrible. That sounds terrible. I didn't really mean that.
I was a television remote when I was a child.
Right.
Oh, my
I'm that age.
This is gonna sound
Right.
terrible, but this just goes to show you how old I am. I can remember my mom used to send me to the store to buy cigarettes for her.
Oh.
So I'd go to the store, but then and then we'd get to buy a little, candy for ourselves.
Yeah.
But the guy sold them to me and everything.
Wow. Yeah, it's for
So-
mom, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so busy guy, Tony.
Yeah, it was very, very busy. And I didn't even have school to go to.
Well, that's nice.
Um,
When do you start? When do you start up again?
It's next week
Okay.
because actually classes start on Wednesday, and I have a Monday class,
Mhm.
so it's the week after.
Mm.
So yeah,
All right.
and, yeah, I think I said last time I knew I'm going to be a GA. My professor hasn't contacted me yet about
Mhm.
what we're going to be doing, but semester hasn't started yet, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So what'd you do, Mary?
Nothing. No.
No drones.
No, you guys got that. I got a bottle of booze. I got
Ooh.
yeah. No,
If you're
I
just as fun, you can imagine you had one.
Yeah.
what I did is I consented. Now,
Oh.
keep in mind I'm not a cat person. I don't really care for cats.
Mhm.
I mean, they're okay. I don't care for them as a pet for myself. So my neighbor has his cat, but he doesn't know I'm not a cat person. So he and his wife asked me to watch their cat, and
Oh.
but he sweetened the deal with a bottle of absinthe from Two James Distillery in Detroit,
Mm.
That sounds good.
non rouge. That
Yeah, the
the
non-rouge.
yeah. So yeah, and he gave it to me before I watched the cats. So it worked out pretty well. So there's that. And then I upgraded my Nexus 7 to Marshmallow. Well, I mean, it upgraded itself. It just told me it was ready to go. So I
All right.
completed that. And then the other thing I did is I spent some time with Gentoo Linux. You know, there was a mention in the paper, and I posted this on Google Plus. And Tom, I think you talked about it a little bit too, that there were, I believe, 20 Gentoo penguins that were shipped to Detroit, the Detroit Zoo from California.
Yep.
And they've got a penguinarium there that's going to be, I think, at least the largest in the U.S., if not the world. And no hyperbole there. But when I saw that Gentoo article, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna take a look at Gentoo Linux, because I thought, oh, I should try a review of this. So anyway, but suffice it to say, I get all the way through, and if you want to learn how Linux works, install Gentoo. Yeah, I mean, I went through the whole kernel compilation process, and what was impressive about that process in Gentoo versus Crux, which is the only other time I compiled a kernel, was the myriad of options available. I went in and I actually found the Broadcom area in that menu system, you know, the make config system, the menu config system, where you go in there and you can turn things on or turn things off before you compile the actual kernel. So yeah, I went all the way in there, checked that out. Then I got all the way to and everything was going very well. I mean, I wasn't getting errors. I was just thinking, man, this is great. I'll have a great story to tell. And then I tried to install Grub, and for some reason, Grub was somewhat problematic. I appeared to have it installed, but it was the configuring of Grub that presented some problems for me. So when I booted, and I actually went and took a look at the partitions, and they were all set up with the directories. All the stuff looked to be there. But when I booted, I just booted to a Grub prompt. So I tried to manually get myself past that. And there was just something going on that prevented it. So
yeah, you know, when I did Gentoo years back, I had a similar problem where you would get everything, it would look like installed fine, and finally reboot, and then it wouldn't boot. It was giving you some kind of errors.
yeah.
And I ended up, I can't remember whether in the compile process for the kernel, whether I said no init rd, or whether it was just in Grub. I left out the init rd part, and then it would boot fine.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's something very simple like that.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, I can't go down that rabbit hole and spend hours.
And what the internet does is it's the initialization for the kernel.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the newer hardware doesn't need it. So, or specific hardware doesn't need it.
Yeah, that could be.
Or the other way around, specific hardware needs it and the general doesn't. So you could probably just try leaving that off of the Grub config.
Yeah.
And see if it works.
Well, I already wiped it, so.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not going back.
All right.
But anyway, so yeah, I spent some time. But that was, you know, aside from that little glitch at the end, the entire process itself was, I think, was very interesting. And you know, and it's my belief, because I did run the live Gentoo DVD before I went install, is that what Gentoo does is they reward you for the pain that you go through when you install it by giving you, I'm not kidding you, there were like 5 video editors. There was just a ton of different programs and applications on there. I mean, I had 3 or 4 email clients. I had 4 browsers. It came with Opera already installed.
Oh yeah.
And I just decided that, yeah, they reward you for the pain you go through by giving you a whole bunch of cool little things that are already available to you. So
yeah.
Anyway, but that's what I did.
You must have installed like the overall meta package, like the install everything package.
Well,
Because
that was off
that's,
the live See, well, here's the thing. It was off the live DVD, and then I found an article from Unix Men. That walked you through installing Gentoo from the live DVD. Or at least using that. And I had to shroot in and I had to, you know, just do all this other stuff. But there was, at least that's what it looked like. Because when I booted the live, see, at first I thought, oh, this is going to be great. There'll be a little install icon there. No, there wasn't in the live environment. There was no, install Gentoo. So they just don't do it that way. But but anyway, so yeah, so it's from there I ended up walking through this process. But there was like a third stage large tarball that I had to deal with.
Yeah,
It was just
that's the actual
yeah.
the OS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you had to, take that, archive that and get that, copy it over, and then just do a bunch of stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, it
So
actually
that was
is. I remember going through that, and I did learn a lot.
Yeah,
it's really
I-
interesting how Linux
Mhm.
in general works, not just
Mhm.
installing a distro.
Yeah. And,
So it's
and the
neat.
fact that where your time zone gets set up and all of where those files are located for the time zone and what gets selected, and in the configuration file where it then knows, okay, this is the time zone you've set up. Well, you're actually doing that, setting that up. It's
Yeah.
just kind of interesting. So
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
anyway, yeah, so that's how I spent my Christmas vacation.
Mhm.
So, all right.
All right. Well, I guess thank you, Mary.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you guys.
That we got a little bit of listener feedback, don't we?
Yes,
Right.
we do. We do have some listener feedback, as a matter of fact. I got, and I'll mention this one that kind of came to me, and it only came to me because I am the one that tends to do the distro reviews, and this was from Sam, and what he would like us to take a look at, or me to take a look at, is Gecko Linux. And so I emailed him back, and anyway, he put it together, and it's based on OpenSUSE. So
Okay.
so he's done some customizations. So he created actually it was a custom spin of the OpenSUSE Leap 42.1, and he used SUSE Studio for it. A couple of the highlights he said is that it comes with it comes as an installable live DVD image, whereas OpenSUSE Leap needs to be installed before using.
Hmm.
And then there's some niceties such as proprietary media codecs pre-installed, whereas OpenSUSE requires you to know how to add those repositories before you add those packages. So there's a number of things that he's taken care of. So I told him I'd be happy to review it, but I think the plan at this point is to put a little bit of space between that recent review of Leap and then this review. So so it'll probably happen, I would say, sometime late January, maybe February timeframe. So
Okay.
we'll take a look at it, and for anybody who doesn't want to go through that Leap process, this SUSE Leap, and doing those things yourself and having it already packaged and configured for you, then this would probably be the way to go. So we'll take a look at it.
So I forgot what's the difference with being Leap instead of their.
Leap. Well, what they did with Leap is they kind of combined. There are some aspects to the enterprise version of SUSE,
Mhm.
and then just the OpenSUSE. So what they try to do with Leap is to take kind of the best of those worlds and
Okay,
put
so it's
that-
not like the bleeding edge testing version, or it's not like a rolling.
was it
release?
Tumbleweed, or what is it? Is that Tumbleweed? I
Yeah,
think?
Tumbleweed is the
SUSE.
rolling, isn't it? Rolling
Yeah, I think
release?
so. It's got. I think it does have some rolling aspects to it, but as I recall, and I'm just doing this off the cuff, that is my understanding of what Leap was.
Okay.
So somebody
Cool.
can check me on that.
Right.
I welcome the feedback. So anyway, so that email came in.
Yeah, and then we had somebody from Michigan comment on our website, and it's Aaron, and he says that he loves Mary's distro reviews. Very concise.
Okay, well, you haven't heard the next one then. Just kidding.
Right.
But well, good. And we're glad that they like them. I mean, it makes them a
Yeah.
little easier to do because it takes some time to write those things up.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Time you write tutorials up.
Yes.
I mean, it's a little different, but I mean, it's a lot of research and writing that you've got to do in order to put something together.
Yeah, especially with this next speaking thing.
Mhm.
If I do that's got me a little intimidated.
Which
Now,
one is
is
that?
that
The Mensa.
Oh, the Mensa.
Yeah, if I speak in front of those people,
Smart people.
smart people. I'm
What is-
wondering
is
how many
Mensa is smart people who want everybody else to know they're smart.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
what is
kidding.
Mensa an acronym? Does it mean something? Or-
Yeah.
or-
And I don't know.
Okay.
You caught me off guard, but I know Mensa means table, and it's something about that. Mensa is I know what Mensa is as an organization. They're the people who are on the top 1% of the IQ. So you have
Oh
to-
wow.
around the globe. That's the
I knew a
only
guy in
qualification.
Mensa.
Yeah.
He was kind of a friend of mine. He's out in Connecticut, and he would. you could tell he was quite intelligent, but he had this one, I'll say annoying habit of just puns. Practically every response of his was like a pun.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, these folks may be smart, but they've got some horrible flaws. I'm
funny.
joking, actually. If there are any Mensa people listening, this is a big joke.
And it's funny, because I've known a handful of people in it, and I've
Mhm.
never even attempted to join myself, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're successful. And there's a lot of them like that. They're
Mhm.
their own quirks and things like that. There's an awesome documentary I watched on a guy who's unbelievably smart. He's one of the youngest professors ever at MIT. So he's not that he's not successful, but he's not successful in the way that you think of lots of money.
But he
and
doesn't have a
riches.
girlfriend. No.
Yeah, that's.
I'm sorry, I'm just joking there.
Yeah, so there is a lot of times there is some
Mhm.
uniqueness that comes with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
You're
which
right.
is fun.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be very entertaining. I'm sure it'll be very engaging, and I look forward to Q&A afterwards. So I got to make sure that my talk will be very thorough and very accurate, which I always do. But I want to watch my grammar a little better.
I think your grammar is fine. And by the way, too, I know that I think since the last time we did a show, we actually, Michael Lucas from Semibug, which is Southeast Michigan BSD user group, I kind of put you two sort of in contact with, or at least mentioned to him that you're interested in doing a PF
So nail down the
sense.
date.
Yeah, and so that's going to happen in April, and we'll have more information on the show about that for anybody that's in the area that wants to attend that.
Yeah, that's the
So-
same Michael Lucas that we've read some of his books and talked about his books on the show. And
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, he's a BSD kind of a BSD. Well, he is a BSD guru.
Yeah.
So, pretty interesting guy.
Yeah, as much as I'm not
So-
as much a BSD guru, but between FreeNAS and PF Sense, I mean they're products that I use and deploy commercially, not just personally. And, so I've had to learn a lot about BSD because I love the product so much. So.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that come April, and I'll be sure and get with him and work out the details because I'll be presenting to Semibug in January. What I've done is I've kind of expanded on my Ghost BSD review that I did here in October. And so a lot of the folks there, they use BSD more from a server perspective. And so I think they're aware of PC BSD, but they really didn't know anything about Ghost BSD. So my plan is to kind of change that. So, all right. So, wow. That was a heck of a tangent. Yeah. Oh, we were on the mail. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it
I
for
think
listener
that's it.
feedback.
All right.
Listener feedback and our
Right.
comments on listener feedback.
Yep. And then going on to Distro Fever.
Yeah, we should have a little song.
I was just thinking that.
Well, anyway, we won't do that. Yeah. So what? I'll tell you what caught my eye. I am kind of in a fever over. Was the release of Solus 1.0, which occurred on the 27th of December.
All right.
And I went in and I took a look at it, and will actually decided to do a review of this. And so our next episode, our Fresh Looks episode, will be on Solus 1.0.
All right.
So that's something it's really, this particular release, what they did is they use what's called the Budgie. Well, they've called it the Budgie desktop. Now, the word Budgie is, I think, a British word, or at least that part of the world word for a little parakeet.
Okay.
I've
heard the word.
But yeah, Budgie. At least that I heard of it because when I was a kid, we had parakeets. So when we look up, there were some books and things that would refer to them as budgies or that type of thing. So parakeets, yeah. So nice little birds. But anyway, the Budgie desktop that is in use here, and I'll tell you, I don't want to kind of tip my hand as far as the review goes, but it's a very clean and sleek interface. It does rely heavily on the GNOME stack. So you're going to see some kind of GNOME-esque, GNOME nuances in there, which is not a bad thing at all. But it's really, it's really pretty nice.
Sure. It doesn't surprise me because Ike Doherty, he's the one that created or put together Solus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's also the same guy that did Cinnamon, or the Cinnamon or Linux Mint.
I am not surprised at that, and I'll tell you why. because, and again, I'm going to refer back to my review that you'll hear in the next episode, but there'll be a whole week separating it, so it'll seem like new.
Right.
Is that I remarked that menu reminded me of cinnamon
Mhm.
because the way it looked, just the
Yeah.
ease of navigation and all of that. So,
Right. Well, if you're not familiar with cinnamon, it's GNOME 3 as the back end,
Mhm.
and replace GNOME Shell with the cinnamon shell on top of it. So
Mhm.
it's what you see is the cinnamon, the way it acts is cinnamon, but the back end is GNOME 3.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming Budgie's the same with that, where it's
Yeah.
GNOME 3 is the back end and it's a new shell front end.
Well, when you click details, what you end up seeing is the GNOME details. So,
Okay.
but anyway, but the whole desktop experience, it was quite attractive.
All right.
If I can use that word for a Linux desktop.
I think that would be appropriate.
Anyway, so yeah, so as far as the recent releases, that's the one that really caught my eye.
Cool. Yeah, I saw that pfSense had a release this week.
They have an update that fixed a couple cross-scripting vulnerabilities.
Mm.
So to me, those are kind of minor because they have to have some web access to be able to get into it.
Right.
Mhm.
Because you can do in pfSense there's delegated permissions where I can say, okay, I want to give Tony only access to the firewall section for rule sets. But of course, you could hack it from your login and cross-script it. But if I'm trusting someone to at least be part of the firewall,
Mhm.
Right.
yeah. So they're already inside, but still it's important to keep an update. There's also some open SSL vulnerabilities that it repairs too.
Okay.
They're part of the standard open SSL package in the BSD. So it's also a couple BSD 10.1 P25 update. So it's just coinciding with updating the version of BSD at the same time.
Mhm.
All
Okay.
right. Very nice.
Nothing major, no major flaws. Still feeling secure. And if you didn't update,
Right.
do update.
No,
It's easy.
no, and that's Open SSL as opposed to Libre SSL.
Yeah, they're still based on open SSL.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Another one I saw was Uber Student. I remember you did a review on that a few years ago, didn't you, Mary?
I did do that, and then
Yeah.
it turned into a taxi company. No,
Uber.
drive students around.
Right.
Just kidding. All right. Yeah, I did do that, and I think, as I recall from that long ago review, that I thought it was a pretty darn good, solid distro.
Yeah. It's based on Ubuntu, and it's chock full of educational
had a
kind of
ton.
software.
Yeah, it had a ton of different software available for students. I mean, it was, because the idea or the target audience are students. It would make sense that they'd have math. They have some math apps and all sorts of different things in there.
Yeah.
And people that are aspiring Mensa members might want to make use of it. All right.
I see that SUSE SUSE Linux Enterprise has a release, and also
Mhm.
OpenSUSE. And there's
Hey,
one more I saw.
the one that I downloaded actually is Plop down there.
Yeah, that's an interesting name.
Yeah, well, no, actually, it's been on the distro watch list 4 different times, and then going back to probably around 2012. And I wanted to, I thought about using it to maybe rescue my Gentoo install.
Oh, yeah.
But then I thought, no, I'm just going to move on. But I did download the ISO, and I thought it might be kind of interesting to play around with it. Maybe to purposely wreck a distribution, see if I could recover it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that'd be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I might secretly try that and only announce it if I'm successful.
Right.
All right. So anyway, but yeah, that kind of caught my eye.
All right, very cool. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome. All right. Anything
And
else? I think probably covered
I think that's it.
distros that attracted our attention.
Right. So we're going on to the news, right?
Yes.
The news.
So what did you guys find for this show?
Well, we talked about the penguins that got FedExed.
Yeah.
Right.
We did. We
They
did.
installed new penguins at the zoo. Gentoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary's post on
Oh.
Google Plus.
Yeah.
Yes.
I took advantage of. Thanks for reminding me. I used a couple of Gentoo. Well, I said something about, I wonder how it's going to be when they emerge into their new surroundings.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then the picture, it looked like they were portaging. I made
Yeah.
that comment, and then I said I was going to stop with the lame joke. So, but yeah, so it's kind of exciting. I think I think we should do is we should have some kind of a release party at the Penguinarium.
Yeah,
There
why
you
not?
go.
Might not be able to get booze in there, but we should actually do a little video thing or something. Um,
My camera
From
is
that.
portable.
yeah,
Yeah.
we should talk about that and do something next summer.
Yeah, I have a zoo membership, so we should go.
Yeah, we do too. So
All right.
My kids like the zoo.
yeah. I've gone out there. The zoo has hosted Zoo and Brew and Wild Wine or something. I go out there when they.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go.
I'm
Out,
in.
yeah, I go out there when they do those things. But the Penguinarium was still under construction. And one of our previous podcast names was, remember, Penguinarium? 'Cause
Yeah.
That's when they had first broken ground on it a couple years ago. So
Yeah, it was very cool.
now it's nearing completion.
All right.
All right.
Well,
So
real quickly, I'll say happy birthday, Linus. December 28th is his birthday. So
Oh yeah, I didn't see that actually. That's
Yeah.
neat.
yeah, I actually sorry to say, I'd forgotten about that.
yeah, his I didn't really read what he did for his birthday, but I'm sure it was fun.
Right.
I'm sure he programmed some kernels and
Yeah.
did some stuff. I'm sure he laid into a couple people.
Yeah, probably.
Oh.
He's such a controversial character.
Right.
He's always smiling though.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really noticed that he's always seems every photo he's kind of got a smile on his face.
Yeah. Yeah. He's kind of a uplifting guy. But anyway, but moving on to some other news, of course, I'm kind of a BSD hound.
Yeah.
And something that I noticed, this came out actually a couple of days ago, is December 30th to be exact. BSD, they've actually got it running on some embedded, or they've got a version of it running on some embedded devices. And so they're going to be bringing that, I guess, to market. And it's very funny because the article starts off, it took 2 decades, but the BSD operating system that dominated the Unix world during the 1980s and 90s, that's right. If they didn't have that patent problem, you wouldn't be probably running Linux. You'd be running BSD.
Mhm.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the Retro BSD project is the project that has that announced their success in getting BSD running on these modern embedded hardware. I mean, it only needs, I think, 128 KB of RAM. It's just such an
Wow.
insanely small amount in order to run. So anyway, but I'll be sure and include a link to that in the show notes. I promise.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was some little bit of news that came out. The other one that I have here, if I can find it, or if somebody wants to jump in, I've got. The grub. I think in the last episode we talked a little bit about that grub
The grub
problem,
bug.
and that when it first came out, it just sounded. Oh, sorry about that. It just sounded like it was just this huge,
Yeah.
problem.
Was an buffer underflow because you hit the backspace 25 times and it let you in.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's funny.
And it sounded pretty shocking. Well, then of course, once in time you talked a little bit about
Yeah.
this, kind of letting the news shake itself out a little bit so that cooler heads prevail and the real situation comes out. And as it turns out, I think that you had to have a grub password in place in order for this to be a
Right.
Right. So there's not a whole lot of people that use that.
I can't even really remember when I've used a grub password.
Right. But the bad
gonna use
part
a
about
password,
it
use
is
a
you put
BIOS
a
password.
password on there,
Yeah.
you expect security, and with the hole being there that you don't get it, that's a problem.
True, that's
But
true.
Also, I mean, for anybody that's savvy enough,
Mhm.
you have a thumb drive and you can do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You can boot off the kernel that's already there, or you can bypass or rewrite grub or whatever.
And you have physical access to the machine to do this. And once you
I
have
would never do
physical
that.
access,
Mhm.
it's game over.
Exactly. So
What I do.
That's what the Spartans said in the
Yeah.
fourth quarter. Game over.
Game over.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was American college football game. For anybody overseas listening.
They
Everyone
got
was excited about
stopped.
it.
Yeah.
No, and one of the things I do to help for physical access. I mean, obviously, I care a lot about my data. We don't
Mhm.
just keep firewalls and keep it secure, but I'm actually running the DM Crypt. If you're familiar with that project at all,
Mhm.
it's the encryption that's used in Ubuntu and a lot of other open source encryption.
Yep.
And what it does is when my servers boot up, they stop. they don't boot all the way because they wait to connect to all the data store to unencrypt the drive, which is annoying if the power goes out because I have to remote in and
Ooh,
yeah, and I have to
That
unlock
would
the
be-
drives and finish the boot process. But
Oh.
mhm.
it can be done remotely for me. But yeah, and the password's kept off site. So the keys I use, I actually keep them on another server. So I got to copy keys from one server to another server at 2 different locations to get them to unlock the drives. But that way, if anyone physically were to take any of my drives out, they wouldn't have all my company data or anything.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's one of those keeps people out.
Mhm.
Right. All right.
Yeah, and that little extra that you have to go through in order to have that security.
But it's worth it.
Exactly. And it kind of reminds me now when I log into my bank accounts or that type of thing, I have two-factor authentication. And
Yes.
it's like, okay, I got to get that email. And I stop myself immediately and just say, you know what? It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Because I look at the big picture instead of the little picture of me having to spend an extra 10 seconds
Exactly.
because it's not a big deal. So, all right.
Yeah.
So,
There was one article that Mary forwarded over to me about open source and their role in breach prevention and detection. So it's
mhm.
it's running things like IDS or an IPS, intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems,
Mhm.
And running it on open source. And that's what we've been talking about with like PFSense and IPFire and different firewall distros that they implement all these, and you get the same or better level of
Yeah.
security that a lot of the commercial stuff gives you. And you don't have the license restrictions, so if you have a little firewall box from Cisco, you have 10 users that can connect at once. And then if you have more than 10 users, then the 11th person just can't connect.
Mhm.
So that's what I really like about the PFSense and that stuff.
You're not limited by which hardware you built it with. You only have
Exactly.
100 people. As long as you have enough hardware to support the traffic,
Mhm.
you're good.
Yeah, and they point out Snort in specific as Snort as being an IDS. Good, and that's the program that's running on.
Yeah, and Snort's a wonderful open source project, and I think they still have offices right here in Detroit. I installed a printer
really?
in their offices, a commercial printer.
Oh.
Got to meet and hang out with the Snort people. I got some Snort swag. We had a great time. We didn't want to leave.
Oh,
It
that's
was
cool.
like an hour. I only got to build it in an hour, but I think I was there for 3.
All right.
But they this comes back to like Juniper and the problem they had with the
Mhm.
backdoor, which turns out to be the British government, wasn't us, wasn't the US here. Anyways, had backdoored in 2012. So we had 3 years that there
Wow.
was a username and password. If you knew
Those
it, you could get
packets
in.
did look like they had a British accent, didn't they?
British accent packets. So somehow they managed to insert code into the code base, and because it's all closed source, nobody found it. And even though it's obviously available to the Juniper programmers, they didn't even see it in their own code. So this went on for 3 years that there was code inserted in there. It comes all kinds of speculation with Juniper. Were they cooperating with the government, and then someone found out, and then they have to play dumb, going, we don't know
Yeah.
what was there. But obviously, you have a commercial. This is not a consumer product. This is a commercial business class router that has a known vulnerability for 3 years that anyone could backdoor into other people's networks. And
That's so
scary.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what if the bad guys knew the password too?
Right. Exactly.
They
And
could be in
that's
there
where.
too.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's the whole problem with
rogue government
any kind
official.
of backdoors.
Yes, that's back to the whole problem of you can't ban encryption. You can't do this because if the government has a set of keys, someone else will get those keys.
Exactly.
And especially the government's track record of protecting keys has been poor.
Yes.
Mhm.
And data,
Yeah,
protecting data.
Yeah, they're not so good at it.
Just data in general has been poor.
So
Well, kind of
that's-
poor.
And that's where you look at it. So I'm a big
Mhm.
fan of open source firewalls. Not an issue here.
Exactly.
And Snort's pretty cool if you for an open source company because they built a good business model around it. I think they're an example of how open source done.
Where are they based?
They have a Michigan office. I don't know where they're actually based.
Okay.
But they're your standard open source concept. So here's
Mhm.
my software for free. Here's all the intrusion detection software with some cool triggers that can build firewall rules with based on port scanning. But where they make money is they charge a subscription service to give you lists and rule sets. So
Right.
Mhm.
the product is free. the team works on rule sets and building and things like that. and
Customizing for,
customizing.
yeah, that,
Well, they also have threat
Yeah.
descriptions, so they see emerging threats coming. They can actually send your firewall automatic updates
that's
hourly,
that's a great business model.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
and it's worth to pay. It's a minimal subscription
Oh, yeah.
for a business to pay, and you get the latest and greatest. There's actually a few banks right here in. I know the bank manager or security guy that runs. I think it's PNC Bank, one of the Michigan banks.
Okay.
Anyways, that's what they use to store it with their IDS and subscription on a PF Sense.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Hmm.
how they work it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
because Cisco couldn't, they used to use Cisco, but Cisco couldn't load the block list and update it as dynamically as fast.
That's because they didn't have that back door that did
Yeah. So
Just
they actually
kidding.
switched all the banking
Yeah.
systems over to PF Sense,
Uh-huh.
which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah,
That-
he came into
That
the
is cool.
presentation.
Mm.
Nice.
Yeah, really neat.
Yeah, that is neat.
So, what else
Great.
you got in the news, Tony?
Yeah. Well, I know I
Oh.
stepped on Mary. She had another
Oh,
couple
yeah, one more. I'm
articles.
sorry.
And
No, you didn't really. I have KDE Corner, and then and then I've got the Linux convention scene.
Tom, do you see anything else good you want to before we continue
Yeah,
on with?
a couple quick things. Mary mentioned PlayStation 4 was based on BSD, and they found some vulnerabilities. That's been expanded into a full-blown hack, but it's only in the older PlayStation, older revisions of the PlayStation 4 software. But they've cracked it.
And we discussed why they were there because I think Sony or whoever owns that Sony PlayStation, the company Sony,
Yeah.
they in all probability they did not really go back to the project with changes and that type of thing in order to keep themselves up to date.
Right, they forked the
Mm.
project.
So-
and don't do a good job of keeping up with security updates. So if you know the point at which they forked it, you know any vulnerability found after the fork time is potentially a way in. So
Yeah.
that's how
Huh.
they worked their way in, which is interesting. Super Tux, if you've ever played it, it's kind of like a Mario style game with a penguin.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the
Mario
driving one
Kart.
or no?
That's not the Tux. That's Tux Racing.
Oh.
This is the actual one. That's kind of like
Oh,
Mario,
that's
Super
right.
Mario.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
called
yeah.
Super Tux.
You know, I played that. I couldn't get past this one wall, and then I got mad and never played it again.
Yeah, not a lot of people. Have
Maybe you can give me some tips.
They finally had a new release, the first stable release since 2005. So congratulations! 10
Hey.
years later, we got a new.
Oh
version.
wow, I'll have to play that again.
Another interesting thing is the on GitHub. If you go to GitHub/showcase/government or type in government on GitHub,
Mm-hmm.
GitHub is getting very actively involved with helping governments put their projects on GitHub. And it's not just programming. They have all kinds of things where to allow easier community interaction with the government via software. I'm going to be doing a lot more reading on this because it's going to be a topic I want to have I'll probably do a YouTube and further discussion, some blog post on. But it's really interesting, and it's not just the U.S. government; they're getting lots of different governments involved.
Hmm.
And basically, just facilitating, using GitHub as a facilitator to let people, crowdsource projects with government. One of my things, like the fire hydrant project, was you can just go through and citizens can take ownership of the fire hydrants and say, we're going to keep it up, we're going to paint it, we're going to let them know if there's something wrong. So now you're actually helping out government, really easy.
Do they
projects
have
like that.
requirements as to what color and all that, or?
They probably still have rules.
It doesn't Detroit have the street light
Yeah.
app?
They have
Or
a street light
If you
app.
see a street light out, then
Yeah,
you can
I
report it.
actually it's called Improve Detroit, and I have it on my phone here.
All
I
right.
have turned off location services, so it wants to know where I am. And I just thought, oh, I'll tell you when I get home. But anyway, yeah, it's great, and I used it to report a fire hydrant that was leaking. And what they ended up doing is they ended up replacing the entire fire hydrant.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good concepts in here with that. I'll be exploring some projects, and it might be something that we bring to the show once in a while. I bring up, hey, I found this really cool project, and bring a mention there. I love to see that the governments are getting involved. I like that GitHub taking the time to have a liaison that's actually helping them out. Yay, Super Tux, Mary.
I installed it on GhostBSD.
Yep.
While you guys were talking about it.
And my last little piece of news is the Risk V or Risk 5. I don't know what they're calling it, but the Risk V is the latest evolution of the Risk Core, open source core. So what they're doing is it's an open source version on the Standard Association. They're going to recreate this completely open source, and it's going to be for like SoC, for the system on a chip for embedded devices, much like Mary was just talking about. In your other article, it's going to run FreeBSD. So they're going to have an open source version of the chip that will allow anyone to manufacture a chip based on the standard. Obviously, some of the OEMs may create their own customizations, but it's still kind of cool. And we actually seen this at the Ohio Linux Fest, IBM showcasing a completely open source chip standard. And the reason they were doing it is they realized Linux is what runs most of the big iron stuff that's in the back end servers, Apache, things like that for web servers. So by documenting every aspect of the chip in an open source way, you allow the kernel developers to take absolute detailed control of the chip without having just a bunch of secret sauce. Like, look, just call this register, it'll do magic. When it's open source, it's nice to see the entire chip open source. That way they understand every call, and that allows programmers to see totally how the chip works and then take the fullest advantage of it.
Yeah, optimization is big when you can know how it actually works.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll allow for better optimization. It's also allow for feedback to the open source project to say, because programmers are going to get into this, if you added this model to it, then it will also improve the chip manufacturer. This is where open source and the hardware kind of meet. It's an open source hardware, not software.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting concept, but this is where the two are going to really meet, and you're going to see a lot of improvements rapidly happen.
Nice.
Google's bought in. Google, HP, IBM, all the big names have bought into this and are at the conference. They're all behind it because they all have the same problem. They need something faster. Google never can have fast enough computers, and same with all these other companies. Nothing's fast enough for them.
Yeah, I believe that's the case.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Very cool. So Mary, what'd you have on KDE Corner?
KDE Corner. Well, there was an article just a few days ago in Datamation that actually was based on a forum post in the Manjaro forum regarding KDE applications and which ones are great where you can't live without them and which ones are decent and which ones are not so good. And it's kind of funny because the list sort of follows my approach to it, where you've heard me over the years complain about Akanade and that kind of little server thing that runs in the background and is used for, I believe it's used for a lot of the PIM, the personal, what do you want to call it? It's your messaging and all of those kinds of the calendaring and that whole thing, which I don't even use at all in KDE.
Okay.
I just don't use it. But anyway, and it was kind of funny because they were talking about, they went from the bad things and K-Wallet kind of fell into there. And I kind of have a love-hate thing with K-Wallet, which is their password subsystem. I use it, but there are other applications that want to use it or want to look in it to see if there are credentials in there every time I open them. And one of those is like Google Chrome, which I didn't have to just shut it because I don't want to automatically open that.
Oh yeah.
But some of the ones that are second to none, they've mentioned Digicam, which is KDE's photo editing and gallery system, which is really quite a nice program. They also mention, interestingly enough, Calligra Suite is in there, which doesn't really get a lot of publicity because of LibreOffice, but they've got Kexi, which is their little Access-like or little database management program, which is kind of a interesting little program that I played around with a bit. So that kind of fell into the decent. And then they're setting the standard or their standouts. Now, guess which one is in there? Kden
Live.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that was in there. They from the reports that they saw out there on the forum, K-Snapshot is another good one. But anyway, so it was kind of an interesting little article. And as I said, it fell in line with my approach to different KDE apps. Of course, I put Dolphin right up there as probably the best file manager out there, and I defy anybody to give me a better one. Crusader is another one too. It's not officially part of the KDE project, but it's Qt based and
Crusader had been for a long time.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was ever officially part of it, because I don't think when the updates came out that it was automatically updated. I could be wrong on that.
Well, what was
But
the?
it was a dual panel system.
Yeah, that was the file manager before Dolphin, wasn't it?
Oh, you're thinking of Conqueror.
Oh, Conqueror, that's right.
Yes, Conqueror was a file manager. It was a web browser. It was 5 things in one.
Yeah.
And I was so upset when they said they were going to just focus on browsing with it and then start off Dolphin. And I didn't like Dolphin at first. It just goes to show you have to chill and let stuff kind of percolate a little bit, because now I love Dolphin. But then they've done a lot to really make it a good file manager. So so there's that. And I think as far as that goes from the KDE side of things, that was all my KDE corner for today.
Nice.
So
Well, on a little bit of topic of Caden Live, we started talking about the tour. So
Mhm.
the new Ubuntu, even though I'm running the latest version of Ubuntu, it's still a few versions behind for Caden Live. So I'm probably just going to download and compile so I can get all the cool new features, which include GPU real-time rendering for some of the plugins.
Nice.
Mhm.
So they've got some enhanced features, a ton of little bug fixes. And one of them I thought was funny when a guy was talking about it. He just showed where you can double click a bunch of times in a timeline and it just automatically crashes KDE,
Oh.
Caden Live. That's been a bug that's kind of annoyed me because I've accidentally done
Oh,
it.
yeah. You know what? I have encountered that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
What happens is you cut a clip and you move it, or you double click it one too many times. You're like, oh crap. To avoid it crashing, you actually
Mhm.
just save your project, close it, and open it back up. If not, the project won't move. It freezes, but then save and close works. If you
Mhm.
save, close, and open again, works fine. Exactly where you left off.
Oh,
But if you
wow.
click too many times in the timeline, it just
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's my process is that I'll take an action, I'll just save it. I'll do some stuff, and I save frequently.
yes.
But I remember suddenly, yeah, it was after I had spliced something, I think I had clicked it too many times or something happened there.
Yeah, it's a
And
really weird bug, but it's a known one, so I didn't report it. It's in their known list.
Okay.
And I looked it up, so I'm
well,
like,
yeah, it wouldn't make any sense for
yeah.
you to.
So, but they also have an option, and I may create some documentation after I test this out that allows you to download all the MLT into different supporting libraries for Caden Live. Because once again, they say, well, some of the distros don't include the latest version. It works way better with the latest version because they're highly, Caden Live. There's just a front end really for the MLT and some of those other libraries. Because
Yeah.
that does all the rendering. So when you're downloading it, it's got an option to precompile all of those with it, and it puts them in its own. When you build the install file, it creates its own version of all of them inside of Caden Live, separate from the OS. That way, it has all the support libraries it needs, so you don't get stuck in dependency hell.
Yeah, and because I've been there where you really want something and then it says, oh, it can't be installed because of this.
Right.
It needs this and it won't be installed.
And that was a problem I had previously, where when I saw Caden Live, I had to go get separate dependencies and pin them with newer versions through in Ubuntu, and it was just annoyance. It wasn't complete. Now they have a complete setup, and I'm like, that's just great.
That's nice. Yeah, I tried installing Kdenlive Live on my Cinnamon desktop and the or on Linux Mint, and I installed Handbrake first, and then I went to install Kdenlive Live, and it said it had some conflicts, and I'd have to remove Handbrake to install Kdenlive Live,
Yeah.
and so maybe this the setting up like you're saying will fix that. That'd be nice.
That's what I was thinking too. So because I haven't run to where it told me it had anything in uninstall, but I know if you install a newer version of like the MLT library and a couple of those other ones, it would break things. So
are you going to put that together as a tutorial?
I think I should.
Or at least a little series of, just say, hey, go to this page. If it's, you're
a set of links or something.
Yeah, if you're amassing information or aggregating it from several different sites.
I created, so there's a Debian install. There's an install instruction on Pure Debian, for example, that would be KMyMoney program. And I had to create one that's for Ubuntu. So, but I haven't documented it. And I've been wanting to for more than one reason. One, I created it for myself, so if I ever have to reinstall again the latest version, I know how to do it. But I probably should create some tutorials because they'll still help me and help others who go, hey, I want to install that program. And they're a great reference for me of what did I put in?
Right.
Well, what are you running on that laptop that's in front of you right now?
This is the Ubuntu LTS 14.
And that's where your Kden Live is going to be installed?
No, well, it will be once I do it. Right now, it's installed on.
Yeah, because
it's here too.
If you ran, and I think your solution sounds like a very elegant solution. But if you were running the most recent version, do you think you would have that problem, or did you say that and I just completely missed it?
No, I think if I'd like to be running. This has a really old version of Kden Live on it because I don't do much editing. I only edit my home videos on here, which is not very tricky editing. I just cut up the videos and upload them on YouTube.
Yep.
All the advanced editing I do at my office, so I always run the latest version there. But I'll probably run it here on my laptop as well. But this is all just kids videos.
Yeah.
I just splice all
just your
together,
standard
whatever.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter that you don't have the latest version
because I'm not doing anything technically savvy on it. I just cut videos, cut out dead spots, and that's it.
There you go.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Very
right.
cool.
Well,
I found one more article. I actually found like 8 more, but they're all pretty much wrapped up in this one. That it's from hacked.com, and it's a list of notable breaches. And the link I have will be for this year, but then or for the 2015, but it also has links through going all the way back through 2010. But it starts off, the latest ones like Steam platform getting DDoSed, which actually wasn't a DDoS. They just didn't have enough hardware to run the demand for Christmas Day. Everybody getting their Steam presence, and they wanted to use it, and Steam couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And then there was another, going back through, there's Colorado voters website.info had a breach, and I mean it has all like some of the smaller ones that we maybe didn't hit the big news, and then including the large ones also. Like there's a doctor in the New York City area that accidentally disclosed 15,000 patient records.
Whoops.
Yeah. And those are just December, going back all the way throughout the year. It's just all sorts of stuff.
There's still so much of that, that's been an issue. We've talked about getting more and more into physical security with some of these companies too, because they just don't get it. And they throw out records. We actually had, this was local here, I think it was last year, we had a tattoo shop. And you were, wait a minute, data breach at a tattoo shop? Well,
Yeah.
They all have to get disclosures from people, which include a lot of personal information. And they had just chucked out all their old records right into the trash, and someone grabbed them.
No way.
Yeah.
Were they sued?
Yes.
Because
Wow.
that's isn't it HIPAA or SOX
Yeah.
or something? I mean,
Yeah, there's-
Sarbanes-Oxley
Well, it's
or
HIPAA
SOX
that-
or
It's
whatever.
because there's technically medical, because it's for the peer, so you
Yeah.
sign a waiver, but then you fill out all your personal details on it.
And then everybody's gonna know where you got pierced, and oh
Yeah,
my God.
too.
For the record, I have never been to a tattoo shop. So there you go.
I've never been compelled to put anything.
Yeah.
Right. I always thought about it, but I could never figure out what to put on that's
Exactly.
like
It's like-
lifetime.
Well, what you do is you do something safe like mom.
Right.
Yeah. I get the Linux penguin.
Yeah, it's
There
good.
you go.
Now I probably would do a penguin, do it on the on my leg or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do a road trip to a tattoo parlor.
All right.
Do
the SMLR.
I want the Debian logo.
Yeah, there.
Oddly enough,
Yeah.
One of our clients is a tattoo.
And if
guy
you
who
get the
does
same
run
color
Linux.
though, Tom, it'll look like
Oh.
a birthmark. Kind of a.
Oh yeah.
We have a tattoo guy that runs Linux, so he'd actually recognize it.
Oh, there
That's
you go.
cool.
All right. Well, we probably should get going here and wrap this up.
All right. Yeah.
So,
So after news, we have the
Linux,
music.
Linux
wait.
convention scene.
Oh, that's right. Oh man, why do I keep on forgetting about that?
I don't know.
Last week or last recording session, we were supposed to do it and we forgot about it, and then
Well-
we recorded it and I didn't edit it in. And
Yes.
then
And I'll be darned if all that little research I did is going to go to waste. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Linux convention scene for January 2016. I'm happy to report that on January 21st to the 24th at the Pasadena Convention Center in Pasadena, California, of course, we will have the Southern California Linux Exhibition, or Scale 14X. Now, I stopped because I'm thinking, wait, it's 2016, but it's actually the 14th scale, which
Yeah.
must have started in 2002.
it did.
But anyway, so it's the 14th annual, and it's and basically as a first of the year Linux Open Source Software Expo North America, Scale 14X expects to host about 150 exhibitors, along with nearly 130 sessions, tutorial special events. So it's really one of the largest in the country.
I heard an interview with the guys running that,
Mhm.
and they said they expect 3,000 people.
Wow, that's pretty
That-
impressive.
They run like 300
Mhm.
access points and like 180 network switches just to and they do their own network for
Mhm.
Wi-Fi and stuff.
Wow.
It's supposed to be the best at any kind of convention you go to.
Yes, and also in conjunction with that, or as kind of a subset of that, there's going to be the UBCon, which is the Ubuntu little community or conference. It is the idea with that is to let's see here. Well, the idea is to get a bunch of Ubuntu people together.
All right. And that's in
And
Pasadena.
Yes, in Pasadena at the same time. That's going to be January 21st and 22nd. Scale itself is from the 21st to the 24th. So this is going to occur at the front end of it, the first couple days.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it's a face-to-face collaboration, and that type of thing. So anyway, The other thing too is at the end of the month, January 30th through the 31st, 2016, we're going to have FOSDEM 2016, which is held at the college campus in Brussels, Belgium. It's the ULB Solbach campus. And FOSDEM is a free event for software developers to meet, share ideas, and collaborate. Each year, thousands of developers of free and open source software from all over the world gather at this event in Brussels. So it's quite the event.
All right.
I guess you have to be a developer to go there.
FOSDEM?
I
I've heard a lot of
fake
people
it and
talk
say,
about it, but
hey,
I
I
don't
took a Python course.
know. Sure. I know HTML. Maybe they'll let me in.
Yeah. I know what tags are. All right.
Right.
But anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, that's the Linux convention scene for January 2016.
Excellent.
Okay. Sound professional, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we're coming toward the end, right? We have,
I think so.
Some music.
Yeah. Do you?
I didn't.
Oh.
Although I saw Mary, you were looking at some stuff.
Well, yeah, but keep in mind that because of my HDMI and my NVIDIA stuff on this, I don't get sound. So it would be a random shot in the dark.
Well, that's
So it's gonna
about
be
as random
surprise
as what I
music.
would be.
Yeah, it's going to be surprise music. So those of you who are interested in finding out what it is, then I think you should probably listen to our edited version.
All right.
What do you think?
There's actually one I was thinking about playing.
All right.
And so one
Roll the dice.
ahead. Yeah, it's let me do a search real quick.
See,
But
change this thing.
It's all changed.
I don't like it. I don't like it because it used to have those little things where you could pre-select like tags, and then you could combine them into a search. And I don't know where those went. So now I have to type out Balkan Carnival music.
So I found the guy.
Mhm.
His name's Lejo, Lejo, I think.
All right.
Arminston. And it's a song that I heard on Rat Hole Radio. It's a podcast by one of the guys that used to do
Rat Hole Radio.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty interesting.
They stopped podcasting about a year ago, but I don't know. I can't think of the name. Anyway, so he's played it in the past, and I've liked it. And it's called "Complicated Man." That's a song, and I'm looking for it right now. I found him on him, but I can't find the song. So anyway, listen in. That's what I'm going to be playing this week. So there we go.
All right. We'll wrap then. That's WRAP.
All right. So you've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This was episode 174.
Gone too soon.
This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
And Tom Lawrence.
See you next time.
All right.
Great.
One of these times I'll pick a song from an artist I really like is Dramatic, and he's an open source. All this stuff is free.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He did a great interview, and he titled it, I give away my music for free, and I still pay my rent in New York.
All
Doesn't
right.
cost me anything. And
How does that work?
he gives everything away free and just says, give me money if you like my music. And people donate in droves because he's got just great music.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it. I donate to projects when I like, like every year Wikipedia puts that big splash screen. And I think, it's time to donate. And I throw a few bucks. I mean, everybody did that.
Yeah.
And we're talking only a few dollars. Now,
Yeah.
granted, his music is, that may require a little bit more.
Right, but it still seems it works.
Yeah.
I've donated money to him. I've got so many of his songs. They're just great. The guy puts together some. I don't think there's too many categories he doesn't touch.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Kind of
cool.
some classic jazz sounding stuff to some
Yeah.
Techno stuff to you name it. I mean, the diversity of this artist is pretty amazing.
Okay.
And the fun he has with things, remixing songs and things like that.
That sounds cool. All right. Well, that sounds like that's something we should go with.
Yeah.
Or at some point,
Well,
anyway.
Yeah, give me the link and I'll
Sure.
and I'll put it in my future music.
I'll send it via Facebook.
He's a complicated man.
There we go. Actually, I threw it in the. As soon as we're talking about the show, I threw it in the IRC.
Is it folk music?
No, it's rock.
Well, the Bible keeps me from the therapist's couch. Don't really want to know what that's all about.
It's country.
My friends all hate to see me alone. But I like myself and I tell myself so. Soar on the wind when I play my guitar. Sing all the songs when I drive in the car. I live in the moment as much as I can. Simple as it gets for a complicated man. There are those who think I live a life of sin. There are those who think that my party never ends.
All right. So we,
There are those who
I'll
are
get
sure
to my
that I'm
piece of
chasing
music.
youth.
Yeah, over.
all right. Should we get rolling with the next piece?
There we go. Yep.
Right.
We'll have the full song on our editing show.
That's right. Just get your toe tapping shoes on. Oh, we're supposed to do an intro for our.
Yeah, what do we do for the show? All right, go ahead, Mary. So
All
if you're
right.
listening right now,
Yeah, what
we're in between
we're in between our episodes because we do a 2-episode recording session. And so what we want to do right now is just a quick intro to the previous one we just recorded since we know the whole contents. So, all right, on this edition or this episode of Sunday Morning Linux Review, we'll take a look at the Linux convention scene for January 2016. We'll also take a look at the latest distros that kind of caught our eye. I know one that caught my eye was Solus, and Tom, I know that you were looking at. Well, you'll talk a little bit about one that caught your eye, and I'm sure Tony, you will do the same.
Yeah.
We'll also take a look at some of the recent news, views, and other things on Sunday Morning Linux Review.
And installing penguins.
Installing penguins. That's right. So stay tuned. Okay, that was a little weak.
All right.
Doing it right off the cuff.
Hey, it's New Year. We get
Yeah.
an excuse.
All right. Let's get rolling with our next one. And we don't really need an intro that much for this because it's more focused.
That's right.
All right.
All right. I'll play it.
The Sunday Morning Linux Review with Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the Beaver.
And this is episode 175,
Fresh looks.
Fresh Looks. This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
And Tom Lawrence.
Yeah, and we're going to be taking a fresh look at a Linux distro this episode, and this fresh look is on a Linux distribution that hit DistroWatch recently on its front page. I hit it, was carried by it. The big news was that the distro was releasing version 1.0, and that distro was Solus OS, and I look forward to checking it out. So would Solus OS be the end-all Linux distro, or would I take solace in the fact that I was only running Solus for testing purposes? Let's find out.
Yeah.
First, the vitals. The name, of course, is Solus OS 1.0. The maintainer is Ike Doherty. The distro's latest birthday, 1.0 was released on December 27, 2015. It is not derived from anything. I mean, it's kind of a source distro in its own right. And the kernel that this version has is kernel 4.3.3. And the review desktop is Budgie, which leans heavily on the GNOME stack based on what I saw when I clicked on details in the settings menu, as well as other desktop nuances during my review, writing, and testing. All right, let's take a look at the live environment. First of all, Solus OS boots to a very plain, simple desktop with a single panel at the top. The panel includes the notification system tray on the right with the standard items, and a circular launch button-like icon on the left, which accesses the menu application, or the application menu, excuse me. another icon, a down arrow with the text "unpinned from panel." When I hovered over it, was sitting right next to that application menu icon, and I clicked it, expecting maybe to adjust the panel, to do something, but nothing really happened. It just disappeared when I clicked it. So I wasn't quite sure what that was, but there was no other notification that appeared. Let's see, the defaults that I noted in the live environment were browsers, Firefox, the Office Suite. There's no Office Suite available in the live environment of Solus OX.
Huh.
So some would say this isn't a Linux distro or a production-ready distro, but there wasn't one there. The mail client is Thunderbird, and the file manager is Files, which I think is also the default file manager in GNOME. There's also a software center, I should say, which I checked out. And when I went to the Office software category, it was unpopulated. And I checked several times. I thought it was strange at the time. But later, when I went back to it, there were packages there, including LibreOffice. So I'm not sure if it was caused by a delay in the DVD spinning, or if there was something else at play there that prevented it. But it was kind of unusual. Now, the applications menu was very clean and well organized. It had some of the elements of Cinnamon, which I think in our last episode we briefly touched on when we discussed it, because I didn't realize that the maintainer, the developer of this project had a heavy role in that Cinnamon desktop. But I noted it, and I thought of you, Tony, when I saw this. I thought, oh, Tony might like this distro.
Hey.
But anyway, the elements that resembled Cinnamon were the color. It was kind of that grayish look. And the icons themselves are very neatly organized, as well as the it being easy to navigate. Now, this icon pack that they use by default is called Faba Mono Dark. And it had the kind of the rounded iPhone look to it. Although let's see here. I also noted too that there was a category called hardware drivers, and this again, I'm switching back to the software center. And what's really nice about it is that there was an entry to install the Broadcom wireless driver, which I almost fell out of my chair, because usually and typically Ubuntu distros will have will tend to have that already set up and running, so I don't have to do much. And then once they get out from that main environment into some of these other ones, it's kind of a crapshoot. Yeah, it might be there, it might not be there. Most often not be there. But I was kind of excited because I thought, because up to this point I did not have wireless, nothing. So I thought, well, maybe I'll have a little bit of wireless later. But I did appreciate the fact that it doesn't check. And there are 3 different drivers that are supported. There are 2 different NVIDIA drivers and then the Broadcom driver. So anyway, I didn't, the laptop I was testing this on does not have an NVIDIA chip. So the only thing I saw was the Broadcom driver. The driver management in Solus is handled by a utility called Doohickey. The name of which was selected after they discovered that Doohickey was already in use. No, I'm kidding. I made that part up. But anyway, I plan to check this. I plan to, once I got into the installed phase of this, I plan to go ahead and use Doohickey to install that Broadcom driver. So I also went back up to the system tray area and clicked the power icon. I wanted to just kind of see what my power options were. I expected to see things like restart, hibernate, and power off, but instead it was as if the whole upper right corner of the panel was activated, because it slid out and I had access to the calendar. I had access to all sorts of different things. Now it was kind of unusual, and it seemed a little inefficient. It's kind of like having a file cabinet label say S, but when you open it, A to Z is in there. So in other words, everything was in there, and that was just one of those things that I noticed. The desktop look options are handled by clicking the gear in the upper right corner to the right when you had this right side panel open. There's a little notifications tab, and again, this gear is right to the right of it. Now from there you have general settings or settings specific to the panel. The first change I made was to relocate the panel to the bottom of the screen. And once I did that, the fact that power icon was at the bottom, it suddenly was not a deal, because again, I like to work from the bottom, and there it was right down there.
And if people are looking at the screenshots, it's got that very phone feel.
Mm-hmm.
How the menus come up and how the little sliders toggle back and forth.
Yes.
I liked it. That's kind of a nice look.
Yes, and that's one thing I noted when I was going through it. I thought, oh yeah, I like that. And the other thing too that the GNOME project I think does really well is when you make a selection and you change something, it's instantaneous. You don't have to click a save.
Yeah.
In most cases, unlike KDE, darn KDE, where I have to hit apply.
In general, I see in a lot of UI design they're removing the save, which is difficult to get used to because I spent so many years for someone like me.
Yep.
But for a new person, like, oh, I just move it and it works, right?
Well,
you just click save and apply, and then hit OK and then restart.
yeah.
That's my world I grew up in.
Yeah, I
Right.
know, and that's why when I do change my mouse button, it's the first thing I do when I'm checking these things out. Here I just change it, and boom! When I close out that window,
It's
I
just done.
was able to use
That's
my
great.
my
Very clean looking though. I mean, it's just
yeah, it is. And let's see here. Okay, and the desktop look options are handled by clicking the gear. Oh, I think I said that already, right? Yep. Let me move on then. Okay, so onto the install. Now, the goal of the Solus installer appears to be ease of use. At least that was my impression when I first started it. The first question I faced was, where should we install? Very inclusive language, if you ask me. The installer window lists all of the available partitions. Now, the hard drive on which I plan to install had 3 partitions, one of which was a Linux swap. This configuration was from the earlier install of Gentoo Linux, which I talked about in the last episode. And if any partition in this list is clicked at this step, the assign as root. Now, at the bottom of this window, there are several buttons, and one of them says assign as root. So I went ahead and clicked that, and what happens then is the little window updates, and that partition that I had highlighted shows that it's going to be assigned or mounted as root. And then also the default in this environment is ext4. So this is sort of like a express setup. So you don't, if you want to have extra capability to really customize it, they do have a little button over on the right side that will open the partition, gparted by the way,
Okay.
but it'll open gparted and allow you then to go in and really set up some customizations.
So they have gparted right in the installer.
It's in the well, that depends on how you define in the installer. I think that button just kicks off a launcher
Okay.
for it.
Well, it's
So,
there.
Yeah,
You can
it's
use it.
there.
That's nice.
Exactly, and I really appreciated that. Unlike I think it was Fedora where I kind of groused about their lack of.
Yeah, a lot of them have their own little front end for one that's very simplistic. And if you want to do anything complicated, you got to set it up beforehand or do something different. Or if you have weird partitions that won't remove, gparted will let you clean up that weirdness. I've
Yeah.
had stuff that Linux
Yeah.
generally doesn't have much of a problem installing over the top of whatever's on there.
Mhm.
But if you want to do something custom gparted and say, you know what, don't touch this one partition I need under this file system, and you can really customize it.
Yeah.
Yep, and
exactly.
that's what I really appreciated about this. Also, if you wanted, let's say you wanted to use Riser FS instead of ext4, you could just pop open gparted and get it set up that way. Now, like many Linux users, I earmark a separate partition as home, but there was no easy button option to make this choice from the installer window. So it seemed like I could either use the partition editor, gparted, and note it there, or I could go to etcfs tab and manually edit it after install, which might be problematic or not. I also put a little note here to the Solus project. What they should really do, and they have that very nice root thing going, they need to put a button right next to it that says set up, if you highlight a partition, you can also set it up as a home partition. That was not available. And I later found out, because I thought this was so crazy, I spent some time on their project forums and discovered I was not the only person that noticed the lack of accommodation for a separate home directory. What I'm saying is that Solus 1.0 does not let you install or create a separate home partition for your files. It's all rolled into one, and I was kind of surprised at that. The project's leader, Ike Doherty, noted in the forums, because there was quite a kerfluffle about that, that Solus 1.1 will have an update that's going to fix the installer to allow a separate home directory creation. So just be aware of that. Anybody that's considering installing 1.0, I just hold off if you like a separate partition until 1.1 is released.
And that's becoming pretty important because a lot of people, they want to boot off of an SSD, load their OS files there, but they have too many photos to store on an SSD, so you have a separate home, which is your other hard drive for storage. So that's kind of an important feature for a lot of people running high-end workstations.
Yeah.
And actually, by the time that this particular review airs, they might have already released 1.1 because it looked like it was a fairly important thing.
Let's check your blog.
know,
So
Real
anyway.
quick, I had mentioned that I thought Ike was involved with Cinnamon.
Mhm.
From what I've looked up, I can't find any real involvement. So I think I was wrong with that.
Oh.
So before we get a ton of
Are you saying we're
emails,
gonna have to start all over again?
no, yeah, I was wrong. There
Hey,
was his
people,
two
I think you should
projects.
still send in those ton of emails just to give Tony a hard time.
His two projects were
Okay.
this Solus, and then Evolve OS was also another one he was working on.
But I will
But-
say that it did look a lot. I mean, that's the first thing I thought of is Cinnamon when I saw it,
Yeah,
just because of the way it looked. But anyway, so let's see here. I'm going to go back and kind of pick up where I left off. Okay, the next window. And after I got through the shock of finding out I couldn't set up a separate home partition, I moved on to the next window, and that asks for the network name. That's for the computer, and whether a bootloader should be installed, and if so, where. Well, there's only one choice, dev SDA1, and that's what I chose. The next window summarized the previous steps, and with that, then I went to the install phase. So the system then is going to, Solus is going to install itself, just that basic install using the information I've provided. Now, after the install completes, the disk and the disk stopped spinning, I was requested to please close the window to exit the installer, and then there was a second request or recommendation. You just need to restart to begin using your new operating system. Now, I kind of got the impression that, sometimes resources are limited on these projects, and that probably a lot of resources made into the code, really making sure that the underlying bits and bytes were functioning properly. And that when you're talking about the user experience and the interface and the flow and how a user, just that general flow of things, that they didn't spend as much time with that because it just seemed a little kludgy to me. And it didn't really go as intuitively as I thought it should. And my suggestion is that the next and the back buttons were grayed out, so they weren't available because there was no next. You were done. So instead of having them still visible, they should toggle them off and replace them with a button that allows the automatic reboot. So you don't have to.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You don't have to go and do that and close things out. It just seems that it'd be a nice, and that, based on my
just change it with-
object-oriented coding, I've done a little bit of it. That shouldn't be that difficult to do, really.
right. Change
So-
it to say finished or reboot.
Yeah,
or-
exactly.
Yeah.
Just a little touch, not a big deal. All right, so let's move on to the install environment. So once I rebooted after that initial phase one, I was then on to phase two, which the system rebooted to a welcome screen. And from there, I stepped through several setup areas, including language, keyboard, and privacy. Now, interestingly enough, on the privacy screen, location services toggle was on by default. Now, a link to the privacy policy was available on that screen, which I, of course, clicked because I'm thinking, what's this location services? And what it revealed was that it was Mozilla location services. So by default, the Mozilla browser, as you remember earlier, I mentioned Firefox as a default.
Right.
Their location services are going to be on by default. So if you're okay with that, cool. You just kind of move past that. Or if you don't want that on, then you go ahead and turn it off. And that's what I did. I toggled the location services off just on general principle. The next configuration settings were time zone followed by connect online accounts. Now, Solus defines online accounts as those for email, online calendar, contacts, documents, and photos. Your typical stuff. But it really covered the gambit as far as I was concerned. However, the options were Google, OwnCloud, Microsoft account, and Facebook. Surprisingly, Dropbox was missing, as was, well, I'm not surprised that TarSnap wasn't listed, but Dropbox, SpiderOak, some of those other
Popular ones.
Yeah, we're not there at all. Now, there's a note at the bottom that says these can be reviewed and changed after setup, but I decided just to skip the configuring of any accounts or the configurating
Right.
of any accounts. I almost said that by accident, but there was a joke value there, so I thought I'd blurt it out. Anyway, the next setup step is titled About You. It's all about you. Anyway, and spaces for full name and username, followed by setting a password. All right, here's where I started tearing my hair out. I was surprised that my standard user password, the one I use on all my testing distros, was not acceptable. Now, what I say by that is when I go and I install a Linux distro and you get to that screen where you put in your user, just not an admin password, but a regular user password,
Yeah.
it always complains, it's too weak, it's too simple, but it takes it. Solus would not take it.
It would not let me put, now I admit it's only 6 characters long, and many times I've been admonished by Linux installers about the dangers of doing such a weak password, but despite all the complaining, each distro accepted it. Solace did not. Apparently 6 characters were insufficient for Solace 1.0, but you could not tell that by looking at the screen instructions. There was some generic thing by type characters and numbers, or type uppercase and lowercase characters and 1 or 2 numbers.
It didn't say, Mary, your password's weak.
Oh, it did say it was, yes, it did say it was weak. Yeah, no, using the username would have been a nice touch, you know.
Yeah. Mary, your password is weak.
But the thing of it is that it gives you a little gauge that shows you that it's weak. But what happens is that the move to the next screen button will not activate unless you've met the criteria.
Oh.
So I ended up, oh God, it was painful. I was kind of mad. It was actually quite annoying to experience, but I finally completed the step after giving it a 10-character password. I think it may be 8 or 9 characters. But anyway, after that, a thanks for using Solace operating system. We hope you love it. Sent me on my way.
All right.
Love was a strong word for me at that point.
Oh,
But anyway, logging into Solace. Now the login screen, and again, I rebooted and I wanted to take a look at what my options were at the boot in screen. And plus I wanted the experience of using that 10-character password. But the login screen looks just like a GNOME login screen, which certainly confirms its relationship to GNOME. But there's a gear menu there that will also let me log into the Budgie desktop, to GNOME, or to GNOME on Wayland. Now, Wayland, if you're not familiar, Wayland is really intended, and I got this directly from Wikipedia, I'll have you know, it's intended as a simpler replacement for X. And I've heard, you know, just as an aside, I've heard talk of Wayland for how many years now? 2 or 3 years?
at least, yeah.
I mean,
I haven't heard anybody actually going to it yet.
Yes,
I don't.
for being simpler, it sure seems it's taken a long time.
It's well, the problem is that there's so much that's written for X
Yeah, that's
that
true.
there has to be some kind of translation or
Mhm.
rewriting of the programs to get it to work right.
Yeah.
But-
Okay, that must be why. But it's interesting. I went ahead and logged into it, and the desktop from the user side, because I think everything's occurring behind in the background behind the screen. I noticed no difference as far as visual cues, anything like that. There was just no difference. I couldn't tell, in other words.
Mhm.
All right, so let's move on to installing packages and programs. Now, there is the Budgie Software Center. It provides functionality to update, install, and remove software. The Software Center also handles dependencies and will present a list of dependencies for you to review before you hit the install button, which is kind of similar to most installers. Now, while in the Install Center, I noticed 34 updates were available. This was after I first installed it. And up to this point, I hadn't gotten my Broadcom to work, wireless to work. So I was tethered to a network cable. But one of the updates was Broadcom STA, which I think is the Broadcom driver. So I thought, oh, maybe that was going to be what was needed to get my wireless working. So I went ahead and installed all those 34 updates. There was no real problem with that. But one thing I had noticed prior to this update is that every time I tried to install something, I had to enter my password while the Software Center was open. Now, normally, once you go into the Software Center and you install a couple of packages, you don't have to do. It seems to me that I didn't have to undo that once you're in there.
Yeah, usually there's some kind of time where it's like 20 minutes or something before you have to type it in again.
As I recall, I was forced to do it every time. But interestingly enough, is once that update was put in place, it went away. So I have a feeling that it may have been, they may have set something too short and they changed it with that update because it was no longer a problem.
Yeah, it's up for 20 seconds instead of 20 minutes.
Maybe that's what it was. But it just seemed like I was doing it all the time. So anyway, I'm hoping that was the case. Now, you recall earlier I said there was no Office Suite available in the live environment. Well, I tried to rectify the missing Office Suite by installing LibreOffice, but had to install the individual applications. In other words, I couldn't just install this quote-unquote suite. I looked for it. I had to install Writer. I had to install Calc. Typically, when you install LibreOffice, you install the entire suite. I have never seen it go otherwise. Now, that option doesn't seem to. Now, if it was available, I went and scanned looking to see if there was something there. There were the common files, the LibreOffice Common.
Yeah.
But that is not really, that's not the suite. That's just the common libraries, I think, that are shared across all the products.
Right.
So anyway, it was kind of disappointing. So I couldn't, as I say, I could install the individual components, but not the entire suite at once. Now, this proved to be problematic when I checked the OpenOffice menu from the application the drop-down menu, or maybe it's the up menu now because I had moved the panel to the bottom.
It's up menu.
So it was the up menu. So because interestingly enough, if you guys have used LibreOffice, and I know you have there is a menu entry to open up a dashboard. You can go to a specific, you can open up a writer, or you can open up the dashboard, and that'll allow you to create a new document, a new spreadsheet, that type of thing. Well, I had the dashboard, and I could create a new presentation, but the problem is, and I was going to test this, I had installed Impress, which is their presentation app. So I went ahead and clicked, okay, let's see what happens when I click this presentation. And nothing happened because it wasn't installed. So I have to believe that they are going to fix this. Now I didn't sign up for the forum or sent a message there yet, but I'm going to have to, I'll check and see. I've got to believe they're going to fix that because that is just not good. So anyway, yeah, so as I say here, oops. Let's see, there are a couple other things I tried. I was able to assign a password to a root with no problem at all. Solace did not prevent that from happening. It was pretty slick. Yeah. So anyway, now normally I will look for other interesting programs that I find that's included with a distro. Unfortunately, Solace did not have anything new or unusual, and I think that's because they were just trying to get 1.0 out the door, and all their focus was on the code. At least that was my take on it. And I didn't want to fall on their face. Yeah, I think they've stumbled a little, but there's nothing completely horrifying with this release. Although that not being able to have a separate home directory on a 1.0 release is a little, anyway.
I wonder if I'm sure you can still do that by hand if you want to manually set that.
Oh yeah,
but,
sure. You just manually edit FS tab and put it in there at mount time, or I mean at boot time.
Right, but not having it as part of the install process, kind of tough. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's sad. All right, now a word about package management from the command line, because up to this point, my experience had been with the Budgie Software Center, and it works. I think it can use some improvement, but I think it's a good basic package management system. It's fine. All right, now Solus they do have a CLI method, a command line interface method for installing applications, which they borrowed from Pardus Linux. It's the PISI.
Yeah.
The PISI package manager. PISI. And that is package installed successfully as intended. So don't get pissy about it.
So there's no apt-get though?
Did you read my review? It says no apt-get here. Instead, it's the PISI way of package management. I tested PISI by installing LibreOffice Impress because I didn't want that little button to be, clicked and have nothing happen. And it's as easy as PISI install package name. And that's it, PISI dash install dash, not dash, excuse me, space, and then the name of the package. And what I noticed about this, and once I installed Impress, there was a entry for it in the menu, which you would expect. But what was impressive is how fast it installed. It was, boom, it was installed. Now, I don't know if that's because Solace is just designed in a way to be really efficient startup and that type of thing, or whether it's because all the common libraries were already installed and I was just simply installing the little custom Impress files. That's probably what it was. But anyway. Anyway, but that's how they handle the command line package management, and nice. They have, and really that PISI, that
I'm
package.
looking for pronunciation here.
Yeah, it's quite well. You know what it is? PISI is Turkish. Well, it's actually the Turkish word for cat.
Yes, they have their own distro. PISILinux.org.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. I don't know that.
We've reviewed that before. Yeah. Remember that, or we had a couple of good yucks about that. All right, but anyway, so but I did want to mention that, and because they're using PISI and not really kind of starting from scratch, it's a fully developed set of tools and commands that I was able to. There's actually one repo that Solus is using at this point in time, and it's just its own repo. But I didn't get a chance to add any extra repositories because I'm not sure that I'd be able to successfully do that as far as being able to then install something from them.
Right.
But you, through using the PISI package manager, you can review them, you can add to them. I mean, it's just like the apt-get system, very similar as far as functionality and robustness. All right, the rating. You guys ready? Solus 1.0 reminds me of a cake that has been removed from the oven 15 minutes before its allotted baking time is finished. The crust of the cake looks good, or the top, but if you start poking around, you discover it's only half baked. Another 15 minutes in the oven and you'll have a pretty nice cake. Ideally, the Solus project should have probably had one more release candidate, which would have probably enabled them to identify this home directory problem, as well as a few other little clunkers that I found.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, this is going to be, I think, a really nice distro once they work out these things, because it's very sleek, very quick. I mean, I aside from the problems I had, it was impressive. I like the fact that I could easily dunk that panel down to the bottom, and then I felt very comfortable with it until I tried to, use some of the LibreOffice suite. So anyway, that's my review of Solus 1.0. And as I said, I would expect that by the time this airs, they're going to be very close to releasing 1.1. And I would think a lot of this will be fixed. So
yeah, and the project looks active. They have their own subreddit r/Solus project. So, and looks like the developers are active. There's even posts 23 hours ago, 24 hours, 2 days ago. So yeah, it looks like it's an active development community. So that's great.
Yeah. So anyway, there you have it. That's again Solus OS, and that the entire review will be posted to.
I think you might need a correction. I think it's just Solus. I don't think it's Solus OS.
Well, it used to be Solus OS. They got sued. They had a trademark dispute in the UK with another company that had a similar name.
Oh, okay.
Solus.
So they used to be, and they had to change it because they're actually a registered business in
Solus.
the UK.
Ah.
Well, you know what? It's very funny you say that, Tony, because if you take a look throughout my review, I only call it Solus. But it's like my brain didn't kick out of the OS part.
Well, there was Solus OS like 2 or 3 years ago, and then they dropped off because of that lawsuit.
Okay.
And he was working on Evolve OS. And so if you look through this year at DistroWatch 2000 or at January, there was Evolve OS, and March was Evolve, and then when it hit May, it went to Solus 1.0.
Right.
All right.
Or beta.
One of the things too, he's got some blog posts. That's where I had read it. He's got a blog post about his dispute he had with the UK trademark.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So he has some posting of why he had to change the project name.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yep.
Well, there you have it. So yeah, it's certainly something to keep an eye on. And by the way, too, the default wallpaper, I think, is a scene from Ireland or something. It's kind of like a little town or something with a nice bay there. I went and changed it. They've got some very nice stock Solus wallpapers that are kind of a gradient, and then the name of the project is on there, but it's done in a very professional way.
Nice.
I mean, this little Irish countryside shot is nice, but yeah. Okay, I am a quarter Irish, but I do I really did prefer the other wallpapers I had. So
All right.
and that's my look at Solus. No Solus OS. I learned.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Oh, and a budger. I don't know how to say it. If you can say that word, it is budger garariar. That is an Australian parakeet, and they just call them budgies.
Budgies. Yeah.
Oh.
Because I can't budgerigar. Budger. That's a
Budgerigar.
budgerigar. Budgergag.
I don't know, but
I understand why they call them budgie now.
yeah, that's what they call them, budgie. Yeah.
Yeah, they look like a parakeet.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
a parakeet. So. All right. Well, anything else you want to cover on this episode, our Fresh Looks
That
episode?
was a solid review. That was good.
Yeah, it was very good. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah,
it
it
was good detail on that.
Well, I try to convey, my experience is just kind of a typical user trying to get something installed and what I'm finding and that type of thing.
Yeah, the Office Suite hang up. I wonder if we'll get some feedback on that because that's really odd. I mean, you'd think if you have a package, you'd have the whole Office Suite because no one wants to install everything individually.
Yeah, and that's why when
maybe
I
I'm wrong.
when I went in and I looked, I went in and well, first of all, as I mentioned, it took a while for that to get populated because there was nothing in there, and I'm thinking, well, this is so odd. And then when I went back, finally there were all the libraries. I mean, and the thing about the software center is that the libraries themselves, or I mean, the other supporting packages, they look like those little archive boxes, and that icon, the little brown box that tells you it's some kind of a tar archive or it's a little zip file or something along those lines. So yeah, so they all look like that. And the only, as I recall, the only files in there that didn't look like that were Writer, Calc, Impress, Base, which are the individual components of the LibreOffice suite. And that's why I kind of scanned around. But when I took a look at the application launcher in that category, it just had LibreOffice, and then there was like this little white page next to it, almost as if there wasn't a.
Could it be possible that all you did was install the common files and not the rest? And that's why it was so fast, because it just installed some of the libraries and then didn't give you the full.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I said for when I installed Impress. That installed in, oh my God, it's like a blink of an eye. It was installed. And normally it takes a little longer, and that's because I think a lot of the underlying stuff was already installed when I put Writer and Calc on there. The other thing too is shutting Solace down was, holy smokes, it took I don't know, 5 seconds, if that much.
Wow.
It was boom, done.
Nice.
So
all right.
Must be a link to a script that just says kill all or something.
Right.
So anyway, but that was it.
All right. Thank you, Mary.
Hey, you're welcome.
Well, I can't think of anything else to cover or follow up.
Okay.
All right.
No,
All
I looked
right.
at like I said, a good review, and the interface is definitely clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they have no icons on, no desktop icons at all on there.
As much as I hate to use the Microsoft word, the one thing I do like about Windows 10 is some of those toggle buttons that they cleaned up some of the interface on that, and it makes it look nice. We're used to the phone interface. I think there's a lot of thought that went into that UI type design, and we're seeing it as a big trend in UI design to have that clean, like simple toggle switches.
Well, it's because you can use your finger.
Well, yeah, and we can naturally do it with a mouse, but touchscreens are becoming popular. A lot of people like them. So if they ever port these, or as we're working towards, a lot of people go for that duality of it works on a tablet, it works on a phone, it works on a desktop. It's a natural evolution to just go, hey, just slide a switch.
Yeah.
I'm gonna refrain from going on a rant
about that.
Not about toggling and that type. I think it's very efficient and it makes sense. But I've got some nice big monitors at home, and some of these sites, and one site that has done this is my community association, and because no one there listens to this, they won't know I'm dissing it. They've got some real estate. I mean, they've got on my 24-inch monitor, they've got these big pictures, and it's because it's designed for a tablet. And I think that even Google now is, if your site indicates that it's mobile.
Talking about pictures as in like
just
menu icons, or
no,
you're talking about
sorry.
like images
photos,
of
images of the neighborhood. And so they've got these huge images, and I'm looking at this thing, and then I got to scroll, and then it's WordPress. I think it's WordPress because it's got those triple, those little, standard WordPress look. And I just think to myself, oh, it just kind of sucks.
Yeah, just a little bit of tweaking can fix that stuff. But
well, he invited people to comment on it, but the forum that the comments were going to be provided was in a very public forum, because there's this website called Nextdoor, and so various communities. Yeah, we've got a Nextdoor thing, and
I've tried it, but there's enough people that use computers in Taylor.
Oh, okay. We've got hundreds on ours. We got I think we got about 400 people.
I think we're up to 3. They're my friends who I told about it who signed up and have never logged in again.
Oh my
Oh, no.
gosh. Well, that's
Next
it'll
door.
come along. Yeah, it's but anyway, so I decided not to rain on his parade because some people were saying, "Oh, it looks great," and stuff. I'm thinking, "Yeah, you're looking at a tablet." I was gonna say, here's what I was gonna say. It looks great if you use your finger to access the internet.
Yes.
Or some like a
Yeah.
left-handed compliment, but anyway, it's just I had and somebody may say, well, it's because Mary, you're just kind of sour grapes because you used to manage the website, and I did, and I had used one of those web it's kind of a template thing that you don't have to be a HTML guru to have a
Yeah.
nice site, because I'm not. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous,
Yeah.
but they're just these blocks, and there's text blocks, image blocks, combo blocks, and all this table block. And it was great because I thought, whoever's going to take this over after me, I don't want to have them calling me all the time to administer a very complex site. So we keep it simple, and it looked nice. People loved it compared to what we used to have. Well, so now they've gone to this complex thing, and I'm thinking, good luck. I mean, because that guy, is he going to be managing it for years? No, then they're going to have to find somebody else. That's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's two rants in one. But anyway, so enough of that.
Alright.
All right, I
All
guess
right.
we'll wrap up.
Yeah. All right.
Fresh looks and rants. I think we should rename this episode.
Rants on Linux.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
All right. So you've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This was episode 175.
Fresh looks, solace.
All right. This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
And Tom Lawrence.
See you next time. All right. You guys, I got to tell you, I think I mentioned that I thought I was going to be in town for our next episode. Oh, we got to stop. Okay. Thank you.